Item is 601C, Gulfport Energy Piedmont.
Yeah, rather simple type of leasing compared to other leasing activities. Mark, explain it.
Gulfport Energy leased the Muskingum Watershed property from Clendening Boy Scout well property. Is actively leasing private property in the Piedmont area. And they have a well site plan, a stout well on adjacent property, and they, as the unit is laid out, it crosses 1.3 acres of district property. And they requested a lease on that 1.3 acres. I guess the one thing I see with that unit is that once that unit is laid out and the wells are drilled, that effectively eliminates the well pad adjacent to those two cottage areas on the aerial photograph, the hilltop and the hidden ledges. And whether we lease or do not lease will be part of the unit. With the 1.3 acres, we would just be mandatory full. Yeah. So, with that in mind, my recommendation that we do enter into a lease for $5,000 an acre, 20% soil. With Gulfport leasing, the lease would be based on the lease that we have with our company.
If I may add more specifically, through Mark's negotiation, the well pad has been moved away from the mine site area by participating instead of not participating.
We don't know how much that played into the decision, but originally it was on the opposite end of that unit, which was close to the cottage area. Definitely concerned with that.
Can you show me on the map the cottage area?
Oh, yes. It's this table, hilltop cottage area, hidden legend. Oh,
No wonder.
small.
Which one? This one. Sorry, I was on the wrong map.
It's good that we're on the same page.
The same thing. Will you show where the drilling site will be on here?
Yes.
Is that up here?
It's the up here, the north-south
Okay.
stout.
Without participation, you flip that around and the drilling site would have been down low.
I don't want to overstate that, but it was part of the discussion.
We have a motion. Moved by Mr. Price,
Second?
second by Mr. Parham. Further discussion?
Is there opportunities for discussion from people who are here to participate?
Not in this course.
Good. I just wanted to document that.
Move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed. Next item is 601D, Enterprise Liquids Pipeline Clendening.
This is a little bit more involved. We all, the conservation group, have spent time, a good deal of time in this one, both on site and like discussions. Mark, explain that to please.
Enterprise Pipeline has requested a 50-foot permanent easement and a 40-foot temporary working easement to install an ethane line at Clendening. There is an attached aerial photograph. It's parallel to an existing 8-inch line that's been there since 1943. And so there's an existing corridor approximately 50 feet wide. The unique thing about this particular pipeline is that Enterprise has the power of eminent domain, which we have not encountered with previous pipelines. Nonetheless, we were negotiating, and they have offered approximately $20 a foot or $9,000 an acre to secure that acreage. They did provide an appraisal of the property, and that was viewed by the Board of Appraisers just a few days ago at their board meeting. And $7,000 an acre for hillside acreage in Harrison County that felt was a very, very favorable appraisal. So they, the Board of Appraisers, indicated that they would accept that $9,000 an acre off. We negotiated with Enterprise for things such as wildlife plantings and crossings and other issues we need to deal with on that. But when it comes down to it, it is a pipeline that's crossing from Pennsylvania, eventually tying into a facility in Texas. So it's called the ATEX line, Appalachian to Texas, transporting to a facility that will create plastics. So, with that in mind, I would recommend that we enter into an agreement with Enterprise at the negotiation.
Does this connect to the plant they're building in Scio to handle natural gas liquids?
It doesn't initially. It could. They're tied into a Mark West facility in Pennsylvania, and the Mark West plant is being built in Cadiz. They didn't, I did ask about that. They don't know if it's going to or not. It certainly could. It would make sense to, but they didn't say that it would.
This follows the existing path of an easement, you
Yes.
said, since 1943?
46.
46.
But it does, it includes additional clearing. But nonetheless, at least it does follow that existing clearing.
Except for the one corner.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Just to clarify, the orange line, the orange dotted line that drops down, that's the proposed, that's part of the proposal that is on the table right now. That is a newer portion to avoid homes where the red line extends straight across. It's going to be a relocation of that red line over onto the orange line.
So are they relocating the existing pipeline?
No.
Just
What's occurred is the existing pipeline in red, since it was installed in the 40s, there's been development adjacent to it. So now there's no longer an area that's not room adjacent to homes to allow move on. So we were satisfied, actually glad to see that they converted that.
Is permanent easement the only route to go in a situation like this?
Well, again, they're asking for a 50-foot permanent easement, 40-foot temporary beside that, so that they will work on that 40-foot and then that'll revert back to us. But yes, they do need a permanent easement.
That's so they can cross it whenever they need to be.
And what I found of interest was that when they do the appraisal, as we shared earlier this week with the Board of Appraisers, they do a fee simple, comparable real estate comp and appraisal, as if they are buying all the bundles of the stick, even though they're only using a few bundles of the stick. They appraise it as if, and so with that notion, it's better for us to think as forever, that this will be, a permanent easement for a very, very long time. But it is ecologically more sound than maybe others that we may be seeing. As I've shared with Jack Shaner from Ohio Environmental Council, I think that part of the emphasis on other activities or other parts of the industry, such as fracking, has diverted the attention from the lack of state regulatory planning and federal regulatory planning mechanisms, as I've shared with the board before. This is an area that we are most vulnerable in terms of public policy, not for us as landowners, not for us as regulators, but for us as landowners, whether public or private, is the ability to have an eminent domain under federal statute and not have to go through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission or the Ohio Power Siting Board. So these are some things that we're going to be dealing with, but in terms of leverage points, this is a good deal in the sense that it is on an existing right-of-way, so there's not a new edge. Anytime you create an edge in the habitat, you change the food web, and not until many years later you might not know to what extent, but this is only extending the edge out. So we would hope that more companies that come to us, if we're assuming that there probably will be a lot of midstream activity, as we talked about in the past, or look at existing right-of-ways instead of brand new right-of-ways. We know that's not happening right now anyway, so.
Is it common for all pipelines to have the right of eminent domain?
No, it's not.
It's not.
What's odd is like the Rex pipeline, they had to get a federal certificate of public necessity. The 1951 statute that created the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to give them the authority to suspend someone's constitutional right to own property. It had to be a very specific public need. This authority flows from, is a public need, but determined by statute and not subject to anything except legitimately pipeline safety, which is administered through the U.S. Department of Transportation. But Senate Bill 315 totally exempted anything else for Power Siting Board dealing with these type of lines. So the state has made a conscious decision to exclude itself from helping landowners plan for such activity, and the federal statute had already made it clear that you don't have to go get a separate certificate at FERC. You already have the authority to do eminent domain.
But the property owner has some due process protections in terms of value. They can take the energy company to court and say you're not offering money.
Right.
The court can determine that it's still $7,000 above the $9,000.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
But the state court in that process would not have the power to say you can't put the pipeline through. They could not do that.
I think that would be accurate. Right. Especially since this is an existing right-of-way.
Sure.
So, it became another example of let's participate and use as much leverage as we can to make this as best as possible.
Where the new orange line cuts down to the left there, they'll have two right-of-ways in. They'll have the right-of-way that has the red line straight through, and then all the orange line.
Yeah, they had the original 50-foot right-of-way from the 40s, and then the new line will divert from that, on that approximately 1,200-foot section.
But they won't have that. That's what I think they have to give this up.
That's not what he just said.
No, I used the wrong word earlier on. I said relocate.
The existing line stays where
The
it is.
existing line stays where it's at.
Yeah.
The existing 8-inch line stays where the red line is.
Yeah.
The new line goes where the orange line is.
Yes.
But the company getting the orange line does not get the space between, no.
Did I hear someone say that we will require certain kinds of reseeding and planting at a certain time?
We're going to work with Fish and Wildlife to get recommended seeding.
And then we'll have crossovers that will already be pre-approved by the groups in terms of forest activities over the top of the pipeline. Makes it safer as well.
Have a motion? No motion. Moved by Mr. Kokovic. Second by Mr. Price. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item is 601E, Carroll Commissioners request to Piedmont Lake.
Yes,